For years, Ladd Drummond has been known as the quiet force behind one of America's most recognizable ranching families. Away from the spotlight, he built a reputation around hard work, family values, and a life that seemed almost untouched by Hollywood chaos. But recently, questions surrounding his health, his family's future, and the challenges facing the Drummond empire have sparked concern among fans. What is really happening behind the scenes? Is this just another wave of online speculation, or are there deeper struggles that have been hidden from public view? Tonight, we uncover the timeline, the warnings, and the details many people missed. For decades, Ladd Drummond built a life that looked completely different from the world of celebrity fame. While his wife, Ree Drummond, became a household name through cooking shows, best-selling books, and her popular Pioneer Woman brand, Ladd remained the person behind the scenes, the rancher who preferred early mornings, long days, and the responsibility of running one of Oklahoma's most well-known family ranches. To many fans, Ladd represented a disappearing kind of celebrity, someone who was famous because of the people around him, not because he chased attention himself. He rarely made headlines, avoided unnecessary publicity, and seemed comfortable letting his family's story unfold naturally. That quiet personality became part of his appeal. But when someone known for staying out of the spotlight suddenly becomes the center of attention, people begin searching for answers. Over time, fans started paying closer attention to updates involving Ladd, his health, his family, and the future of the ranch. Online discussions grew as people noticed changes in appearances and wondered how the Drummond family was adapting to new challenges. For a family that had shared so much of their life with the public, even small changes could create major curiosity. The reality is that life on a working ranch has never been simple. Behind the beautiful landscapes and carefully captured family moments is a demanding lifestyle filled with physical work, unpredictable situations, and constant responsibility. Running a ranch is not just a business. It is a way of life that requires dedication every single day. Ladd's identity has always been connected to that lifestyle. He was not known for dramatic interviews or controversial moments. He was known for consistency, strength, and being the steady presence in his family story. That is why recent concerns caught people's attention. When a person who has built a reputation around being dependable suddenly faces questions about what comes next, audiences naturally want to understand the full picture. Was this simply a case of fans reacting to normal changes in a very public family's life? Or were there deeper challenges that had been developing away from cameras and social media? To understand why so many people began asking questions, it is important to look beyond the headlines and examine the moments that caused the conversation to grow. Because sometimes the biggest stories do not begin with a major announcement. They begin with small details that people notice before anyone explains what they really mean. For a family that has spent years sharing pieces of their lives with millions of viewers, even the smallest changes can create a wave of speculation. The Drummond family has always been open about their daily routines, celebrations, challenges, and milestones. That connection with fans created a unique situation. People felt like they knew the family personally, which meant they also noticed when something seemed different. In the months and years following major events in Ladd Drummond's life, fans began paying closer attention to updates involving him. Some noticed fewer public appearances, fewer moments focused on Ladd himself, and a shift in how the family presented their everyday life. For many viewers, these changes raise questions. But changes in public visibility do not always tell the full story. Unlike entertainers who rely on constant appearances, Ladd's world has always revolved around the ranch. His daily responsibilities are physically demanding, and his work does not depend on cameras being present. While fans may have become accustomed to seeing glimpses of his life through family videos and television appearances, the reality is that much of his time has always been spent away from the spotlight. Still, curiosity continued to grow. One reason is that the Drummond family has built such a strong connection with their audience. When people watch a family for years, they naturally become invested in their journey. They celebrate their successes, remember their struggles, and become emotionally attached to the people they see on screen. That emotional connection meant that questions about Ladd were not simply about a celebrity figure. To many fans, they were about someone they had watched become part of their lives. The conversations became especially intense because of the physical nature of ranch work. A ranch is unpredictable, and every day can bring new challenges. Injuries, exhaustion, and the pressure of managing a large operation are realities that many people outside that world may not fully understand. However, separating concern from assumption became increasingly important. Online rumors often grow faster than facts. A missing photo, a change in routine, or a quiet period can quickly turn into exaggerated claims. In the age of social media, uncertainty can create its own story before the truth has a chance to catch up. The Drummond family has experienced this before, moments where public interest became overwhelming and where fans searched for explanations about what was happening behind the scenes. But one event more than any other changed how people viewed Ladd's strength, his resilience, and the challenges he faced. It was a moment that transformed an ordinary day on the ranch into a frightening situation that affected not only Ladd himself, but the entire Drummond family. And once fans learned what had happened, they began looking at his journey in a completely different way. Before concerns about Ladd Drummond's future ever became a topic of discussion, there was one moment that completely changed the way fans viewed his life on the ranch. In March 2021, Ladd and his nephew Caleb Drummond were involved in a serious accident while fighting a wildfire near the family's Oklahoma ranch. The two were operating fire trucks when the vehicles collided due to dangerous conditions, including poor visibility and the challenges of responding to a fast-moving fire. The accident immediately became a frightening reminder of the risks involved in ranch life. For years, viewers had seen the beauty of the Drummond property, the wide-open fields, the peaceful landscapes, and the family moments shared through television and social media. But behind that image was another reality. Ranching can be dangerous, unpredictable, and physically demanding. The accident forced the family into a situation they had rarely experienced publicly. Instead of sharing celebrations and everyday ranch moments, they were suddenly facing a serious emergency that required recovery, patience, and emotional strength. Ladd suffered significant injuries, including neck fractures, and his recovery process became a major concern for fans who had followed his journey. The situation was especially challenging because ranch work does not simply stop. Even when someone is injured, responsibilities continue. Animals still need care, and the operation still requires attention. For someone like Ladd, whose identity was deeply connected to being active and involved, stepping away was not easy. Reed Drummond later shared that Ladd was determined to recover and return to normal life. His strong work ethic, which had defined him for decades, became one of the qualities people pointed to when discussing his recovery. But the accident also revealed something deeper about the Drummond family. It showed the pressure that comes with maintaining a lifestyle built around hard work and independence. It showed how quickly everything can change, even for people who seem to have everything under control. For fans, the accident became more than just a headline. It became a turning point. Many began seeing Ladd differently. He was no longer simply the quiet rancher standing beside his famous wife. He became someone facing real physical challenges while trying to maintain the responsibilities that had always defined him. The experience also brought attention to the importance of family support. During difficult moments, the Drummonds leaned on each other, showing a side of their lives that was less polished and more personal. But as time passed, another question began to emerge. Recovering from an accident was one challenge. Maintaining a demanding ranch, protecting a family legacy, and deciding what the future would look like were completely different battles. Because the biggest challenge facing the Drummonds was not just what happened during that terrifying day in 2021. It was what came afterward. As the family entered a new chapter, questions about responsibility, change, and the future of the ranch became impossible to ignore. And behind the scenes, a much larger transition was beginning to take shape. To understand the challenges facing Ladd Drummond, it is important to look beyond the accident and beyond the headlines. The real story is not just about one difficult moment. It is about the enormous responsibility that comes with protecting a family legacy that has existed for generations. The Drummond Ranch is more than a piece of land. It represents history, tradition, and a way of life that has been passed down through the family. For Ladd, running the ranch has never simply been a job. It has been part of his identity. Every day comes with decisions that cannot be postponed. Weather conditions, livestock needs, business responsibilities, and the constant demands of ranch management create a schedule that requires commitment and endurance. Unlike many careers where people can step away after a difficult period, ranching often requires a person to remain connected no matter what challenges appear. That reality became even more noticeable after Ladd's accident. While recovery was a personal battle, returning to the rhythm of ranch life created a different kind of challenge. The question was no longer just whether he could heal. It was how the family would adapt while continuing to manage everything they had built. This is where the next generation began becoming increasingly important. Over the years, fans watched the Drummond children grow up, move toward their own careers, and begin creating lives outside the ranch. Like many family businesses, the future depends on finding the balance between honoring tradition and allowing younger generations to create their own paths. That transition is often complicated. A family legacy may look permanent from the outside, but behind closed doors, decisions about the future require careful thought. Who takes on more responsibility? How does a family business evolve? And how do you preserve what made it special while allowing it to change? These are questions many multi-generational businesses eventually face. For the Drummonds, those questions became even more meaningful because so many people had followed their journey for years. Fans had watched their family celebrations, their struggles, and their everyday moments. They were not just observing a business transition, they were watching a family enter a new phase of life. At the center of it all was Ladd, a man who had always been viewed as the foundation of the operation. But even the strongest foundations eventually face pressure. The challenge was not only about maintaining the ranch today. It was about preparing for tomorrow. And as the family continued moving forward, one major question remained unanswered. Could the Drummond legacy continue evolving while still keeping the same values that made people admire them in the first place? Because the future of the ranch would not be decided by one person alone. It would depend on the choices the entire family made next. For years, the Drummond family story has represented something many people admire: a connection between tradition and change. At the center of that story has always been Ladd Drummond, the rancher who helped maintain a family operation built long before cameras ever arrived. But every family legacy eventually reaches a turning point. The question facing the Drummonds is not whether the ranch has survived difficult moments before. It has. Generations of the family have experienced challenges, unpredictable conditions, and the constant pressure that comes with running a massive agricultural operation. The bigger question is what happens when a new generation begins stepping forward. Across America, family businesses often face the same challenge. The founders or longtime leaders become symbols of stability, but eventually younger family members must decide how they want to contribute. Some continue the tradition exactly as it was. Others bring new ideas, different skills, and a completely different vision. For the Drummond family, that transition has been happening gradually. Fans have watched the children grow from young family members appearing in casual ranch moments into adults building careers, relationships, and identities of their own. Their paths show that the future of the family may not look exactly like the past. And that may be the most important change of all. The Drummond legacy was never only about one person. It was built through generations of teamwork, shared responsibility, and a commitment to the land. While Ladd has been a central figure in maintaining that tradition, the strength of the family comes from more than one individual. Still, there is no denying the role he has played. For many fans, Ladd represents the heart of the ranch. He represents the person who wakes up before sunrise, handles the difficult decisions, and keeps everything moving even when no one is watching. That is why concerns about his future created such a strong reaction. People were not only wondering about a celebrity figure. They were wondering what happens when someone who has always been seen as the steady force behind a family suddenly faces new limitations, new responsibilities, or a changing role. But perhaps the biggest misunderstanding is assuming that change automatically means the end of something. Sometimes, change is what allows a legacy to survive. The Drummond family has already shown the ability to adapt. They transformed a private ranching lifestyle into a story shared with millions of people while still maintaining their connection to their roots. They expanded their businesses, embraced new opportunities, and continued evolving with the times. The future may look different, but different does not necessarily mean worse. The real challenge will be finding the balance between honoring everything that came before while creating space for what comes next. Because eventually, every family built around a powerful legacy faces the same moment of truth. The person who carried the weight for years must decide when to pass some of that responsibility forward. And for Ladd Drummond, that moment raises the biggest question of all. After decades of protecting his family's name, building a successful ranch, and becoming the quiet foundation behind one of America's most recognizable families, what role will he choose in the next chapter of the Drummond story? That answer may reveal more about the future of the ranch than anyone expects.